I'd like to read to you a letter from Dr. Johnson to his friend Captain Langton in Rochester. It's 2 years from the end of Johnson's life. He's sick. He's feeling the end. His friends are beginning to die. He feels death coming. He's been getting bled regularly, a common practice in the day. Here's the letter. And I just wanted to share it with you for the consideration of old age and disease and sensing the end coming. Dear sir, it is now long since we saw one another, and whatever has been the reason, neither you have written to me nor I to you. To let friendship die away by negligence. Come on, dogs. Is certainly not wise. It is voluntary to throw away one of the greatest comforts of this weary pilgrimage, of which, when it is, as it must be, taken finally away, he that travels alone will wonder how his esteem could be so little. Do not forget me. You see that I do not forget you. It is pleasing in the silence of solitude to think that... Turn the page here. To think in the presence of solitude, to think that there is at least one, however distant, of whose benevolence there is little doubt, and whom there is yet hope of seeing again. Dr. Johnson's feeling quite alone here. Of my life from the time we parted, the history is mournful. The spring of last year deprived me of Thrall, a good friend of his, Mr. Thrall, a man whose eye for 15 years had scarcely been turned upon me but with respect or tenderness. For such another friend, the general course of human things will not suffer man to hope. I passed the summer at Streatham, which is where Mr. Thrall had his home, but there was no Thrall. And having idled away the summer with a weakly body and neglected mind, I made a journey to Staffordshire on the edge of winter. The season was dreary. I was sickly, and found the friends sickly whom I went to see. After a sorrowful sojourn, I returned to a habitation possessed by two sick women, the two women that lived in his home with him, people he'd taken in to help, where my dear old friend Mr. Levitt, to whom, as he used to tell me, I owe your acquaintance, died a few weeks ago, suddenly in his bed. There passed not, I believe, a minute between health and death, which this death of Mr. Levitt really struck Johnson. At night, as at Mrs. Thrall's, I was musing in my chamber, so he's up at night thinking. I thought with uncommon earnestness that, however I might alter my mode of life, or whithersoever I might remove, I would endeavor to retain Levitt about me. In the morning, my servant brought me word that Levitt was called to another state, a state for which I think he was not unprepared, for he was very useful to the poor. So he was thinking about Levitt and how even though he's sick and old, and at least he's got Levitt, and now Levitt's gone too. And he's comforting himself with the thoughts that at least Levitt's in heaven. How much soever I valued him, I now wish that I had valued him more. I have myself been ill more than 8 weeks of a disorder. Well, I'm going to stop for a second. There's a little a quote here that from a little stanza that reflects that. Here it is, the Johnson light, relative to Levitt's death. He says, I prized every hour that went by beyond all that had pleased me before. But now they are gone, and I sigh, and I grieve that I prize them no more. Wow, so he's getting to that stage where he enjoyed the days, and he was grateful for them, but now they're gone. And not even the recollection really brings him much peace anymore. I have myself been ill more than 8 weeks of a disorder from which, at the expense of about 50 ounces of blood, I hope I am now recovering. So, like I said, he's been bleeding himself, and he reports that he feels better after every bleeding. You, dear sir, have, I hope, a more cheerful scene. You see George, fond of his book, his son George, and the pretty misses, his daughters, airy and lively, with my own little Jenny equal to the best. And in whatever can contribute to your quiet or pleasure, you have Lady Rothes, his wife, ready to concur. May whatever you enjoy of good be increased, and whatever you suffer of evil be diminished. I am, dear sir, your humble servant, Sam Johnson. Bolt Court, Fleet Street, March 20th, 1782. So even though Johnson's death is near, his health is beginning to go down. His his attitude waning as well. His optimism diminished. He's separated from friends who are dying quickly. He's trying his best. But I can certainly feel for the man, as old and alone as he is at this late stage in his life. His letters certainly reveal his frame of mind.